I've joined with Senator Enzi, a Republican from Wyoming, Senator Lamar Alexander, a Republican from Tennessee, Senator Heidi Heitkamp, a Democrat from North Dakota, in a bipartisan effort to solve a problem. It was a problem not of our creation. It was a problem that came about because commerce has changed in the United States. 20 years ago, the state of North Dakota went across the street to the Supreme Court and said, we want to collect sales tax from remote sellers. These are mainly 20 years ago, catalog sales, so that if you have a catalog sale into the state of North Dakota, they could collect sales tax. And the Supreme Court across the street, almost 21 years ago, said in the Quill decision, we're not going to rule this from the court. It's up to Congress to write the law that does this. Well, in lightning fast speed, with the kind of reaction we've come to expect, 21 years later, here we are. We are actually debating it. We may actually vote on it in an hour and a half. And what's it all about? It's about the way commerce has changed in America. Think about it. When did you first make an internet purchase? Virtually all of us have. I remember doing it saying, I wonder how this is going to work. They're going to take it off my credit card, then I'm going to receive this from the mail, or UPS is going to deliver this book from Amazon. And it worked out pretty nicely, and I did it again. And I did it to buy some clothes from Land's End and a few other things, and pretty soon I'm an internet purchaser. Well, it turns out there was something going on I didn't know about. In my state of Illinois and 45 other states, I have a legal obligation to pay sales tax on what I just purchased on the internet. Most people don't know it. It's on the state income tax return at the end of the year in Illinois and many other states, where they ask you to itemize how much you owe for sales tax to the state of Illinois from purchases you made on the internet. A few years ago, my bookkeeper brought it to my attention and said, Senator, do you want to pay this? And I said, I think I should. And I started making calculations of what it was, and it was my best estimate. And I paid it. Turns out that only 5%, 1 in 20 taxpayers in Illinois make that payment. Now repeat that story over 45 states, and you will find that so many residents of states, whether it's Maine or Illinois or California, may have a legal obligation to pay sales tax on their internet purchase. They don't do it. So what happens is less money is going into the states, the counties, the localities that have the sales tax revenue coming their way. But something else has happened that's very significant. The competition of the internet retailers is at a disadvantage. Unabridged bookstores on Broadway in the city of Chicago, just right around the corner from where my wife and I reside in Chicago. Unabridged is a great bookstore, and I love bookstores, and I make a point of going in there. I went in there just this last Friday, bought a couple books, and paid my sales tax to the state of Illinois. But as I mentioned earlier, I buy books on Amazon. Sometimes they collect sales tax, and sometimes they don't. A great deal depends on whether the actual seller of the book is a store in Illinois, for example. So what's the difference? Well, the difference is about 8 or 9% on what you're paying for a book. And when I bought it at the store on Broadway, where they're collecting the sales tax as they're required by law, paying property tax as they're required by law, and sustaining that great city of Chicago and all its services, I paid more than I might have on the internet. Here's what this bill says. This bill says that the states can now require the internet retailers to collect the sales tax at the point of purchase and to remit those proceeds back to the state. So, if Amazon, for example, which supports this bill incidentally, if Amazon sells a book to me in Illinois, they collect the sales tax and send it to Springfield, to the Illinois Department of Revenue. Just that simple. And as far as the way they collect it, this bill requires that the internet retailers be given the software that they need, so that when I put in my address, either in Chicago or Springfield, I have two places in Illinois, the address is going to identify how much tax is owed. It's not as dramatic and complicated as some have suggested on the floor. In fact, it's done every single day. What if we don't do it? What we're going to find is that bookstores, stores that sell running shoes, bicycles, and appliances are at a distinct disadvantage. They become showrooms, and they tell you the story. This is the lacrosse store here, and they were going out of business. They sold sporting goods and soccer gear up in the suburbs of Chicago. They just couldn't keep up with it anymore because people were coming in and they were showrooming. They would come into the store and say, I'm looking for some running shoes and I can't decide whether it's Nike or Adidas. Can you bring out a few boxes? How about different colors? Let me try a different size. Okay, got it. Oh, this is just perfect. Let me write this down. You know what happened next? They walked out of the store and ordered it on an internet, paid no sales tax. And so these stores, and many like them, are competing against that. We're trying to solve this once and for all. And we've done it in a way that I think is fair. We took a bill that was 80 pages long and turned it into 11 pages so it's simple to follow. We made it easy for the retailers in terms of the software they need to make this collection. And now across the United States, there'll be a standard. That's going to help a lot of retailers. Sure, it's going to help the biggest ones. I'm not going to make any bones about that. Of course it will. But it's going to help the small ones too, the unabridged bookstore, and things like this, the lacrosse sporting goods. These are companies that will be helped in the process too. They create jobs, they have employment. These are entrepreneurs that sustain our community. When it comes to things that you need in the neighborhood or in your town, you go to the small stores. Can you buy an ad in the church program? Can you support the local baseball team? You know, they're citizens of the community. They're residents of the community. They're part of the community. And this bill is trying to make sure that they have a fair, level playing field when it comes to competing. We put an exemption in this bill and said if you had less than $1 million in internet sales last year, you don't have to collect sales tax this year. Well, what does that 1 million mean? Well, I can tell you that if we'd set that number at 150,000 instead of 1 million, we would have exempted 99% of all the internet retailers. What it comes down to is this bill will affect the big boys, the internet retailers like Amazon, like eBay, the big ones. And they can certainly, and already do in many instances, collect this sales tax. It does not affect the small internet retailers, particularly in these states that are complaining the most about the passage of this legislation. So I think this is an important measure in terms of leveling the playing field for retailers across America, and it's long overdue. It's bipartisan. It has the support of the White House. It has the support, you can imagine, of the retail community, stores large and small all across America. It has the support of virtually every level of government beyond the federal level. All the governors and mayors and localities, virtually all of them support it. And the labor unions support it as well, because money coming back into these states and communities will be used for the good of the people who live there. I don't know about many states, but in my states, they're struggling in terms of coming up with enough revenue. This bill will help provide the revenue, some of the revenue that my state needs to deal with some of these problems. I've listened to a lot of speeches on the floor against this measure, and they're virtually every single one of them has been from a state with no sales tax. My final plea is to the people of Oregon, Montana, New Hampshire, and Delaware, and Alaska. If this bill passes, you will not have to pay any new sales tax. This bill creates no new federal tax, creates no new sales tax anywhere in the United States. It only has a method of collection for those sales taxes that already exist in the states across the nation. I hope that we can get a good, strong bipartisan vote on this. Send it to the House, and I hope they'll take it up. It's a timely measure, an important measure. Waiting 21 years, I think we've thought it over enough. It's time to act, to do something, to resolve an issue, to help the small businesses and to help the units of government across America where this revenue will play an important part of their future.